Christian leaders that are high profile need to be careful about congratulating Biden and Harris for winning. You say, Mara, that is gross. That's been tradition since the beginning of this nation and all through Billy Graham, Oral Roberts, in our tradition. Ladies and gentlemen, something has changed. And you do not want to take ownership for the evil that will come upon this nation, because when you congratulate them, you're going to have a part and you're going to be connected to what they've done.
Notice it says here, but any prophet who falsely claims to speak in my name or who speaks in the name of another God must die. 1 John 4:1 says, dear friends, do not believe everyone who claims to speak by the Spirit.
And it's all leading up to what's coming up in January 20th. And so I've said this many times before, but please reserve throwing your stones at me until January 20th.
First of all, I want to say without question, Trump is going to win the election. That doesn't mean you sit home and don't vote. That means you get out and do everything you can to work, but he's going to win. That's, I think, a given.
Because I am speaking from the future.
Yes, you are.
This moment.
Right this moment.
And I am going to proclaim that President Trump will be president of the United States.
Hallelujah.
In Jesus' name.
Will it be an 8-year presidency?
Absolutely. Absolutely we will.
You're sure about that?
I'm sure about that.
You must test them to see if the spirit they have comes from God. Why? For there are many false prophets in the world.
Nowhere in the Bible does it say prophets have to apologize for anything. You'll not ever hear me apologize for what God has said to me. I will stand and I will still believe what God said would happen, and it will happen.
But you may wonder, how will we know whether or not a prophecy is from the Lord? God says, okay, if the prophet speaks in the Lord's name, but his prediction does not happen or come true, you will know that the Lord did not give that message. That prophet has spoken without my authority and need not be feared.
The Associated Press said that Joe Biden is president. Ha! Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's going to be president. Mickey Mouse is going to be king. Yeah. Yeah.
Listen to the dream that I had last night from God. And then they proceed to tell lies in my name. God says, how long will this go on? If they are prophets of deceit, inventing everything they say. By telling these false dreams, they are trying to get my people to forget me. Every believer must listen to this dream God gave me last night. I was paralyzed. I kept crying. Here are several more. God showed me something extremely disturbing in a dream. God told me to tell you about the dream. God has been giving you strange dreams and visions, and this is why. The final vision, a dream God gave me 2 nights ago. God gave me a prophetic dream about a battlefield and a club line. Prophetic dream of man with 2 faces, one was demonic. I had a demon choke me in my sleep last night. God gave me a prophetic vision. He is sending something big, and the list goes on and on. By people saying I had a dream from God, essentially what they're trying to do is to get you to listen to them rather than listen to God. Because God has given them some special word or some special revelation that he hasn't given to anybody else.
Kat is totally convinced of what God is going to do. Do you still believe that, Kat Kerr?
Do you still believe that God is alive and on the throne? That is my answer to that question. As a matter of fact, I'd like to know how many out there actually think he does exist. Having known him for almost 70 years, when I received Christ at age 4, I'm a seer, so I saw him step inside of me, and my relationship only grew with him over all these years. And he's shown me many times things that would happen, and they came to pass. Now I can tell you some people can't be chosen by God because they can't believe for anything past a week or 2 weeks, which makes me laugh in a way because there's some things I waited 40 years for him to do, but guess what? He did them. And he assured me back in 2015 that Trump would sit in the White House for 8 years. And I actually got to pray for them during the inaugural prayer breakfast. back in 2016, and he made me prophesy that. And God has assured me today when he walked into my room and woke me up at noon, almost noon, 11:55 a.m. I'm up for like 20 hours a day, and sometimes I go to sleep, sometimes I don't. But I always had my alarm set for noon, and it didn't go off. God did. And he came in and he yelled, as a lot of you possibly could, justice will prevail. I will not listen to the stuff, the acts, because they don't know how to put a show on. Hell never has put on a good show. This is still God speaking. Hell has never put on a good show. They've always lost the seats they went after. They lost whatever they were planning to do. He said, I kicked them out of heaven. That was the first show. Lightning was striking. They were kicked out, unseated, and stripped away from power. The second show was in hell on the third day, mentioned in Colossians, when my son stood up and released the fire of blood from himself and melted the faces of the hierarchy of hell and made a show of it openly. He said, the third show is still in rehearsal right now. He said, the enemy is fighting so hard, he still has not won. I don't count it as a win. He said, I will win, and Trump will still sit in the White House for 4 more years. If people cannot see beyond their own nose and understand that if they believe I'm doing something, they should keep on trusting. He said, but I'm about to put a show on nobody expected. And he said, when the ground begins to shake and the landslide begins to start, no one or nothing can stop the fraud, the contracts being shown, the videos that are being made between the parties that made contracts with evil to do evil in this land. This is my country. I will not allow it to be taken from me. This is only the beginning of the great days, the great divine decade, and the second one behind it. I'm setting up and setting in place during this very time when you should remember, I will always set a table in the presence of your enemies. Have you asked for that table? Because I'm about to fill it. I will expose and wipe clean the platform that they're trying to stand on right now. And Trump will have to be inaugurated. They will have to say it. Even though they don't want to, the time will come and they will have to say, Trump is the 46th president of the United States, and he will sit in that office for 4 more years. I have never changed that plan. And there'll be so many people going to jail, this is his words, going to jail or prison. They will begin to fall upon each other and gnash at each other. He said they have no foundation, the left, the wicked, the evil. They have no foundation to hold them together. They can't even hold their day-to-day activities together. They can't hold their own words together because they come from the enemy. The enemy has been a loser from the beginning. He will lose again, and all those who joined him on this journey will fail. And they will fail greatly. And they'll lose property, and they'll lose positions, and they'll lose money. They'll lose faith. And that goes to even some of the Christian leaders who joined their team and decided to abandon what God wanted. They will lose their voice. They will lose their platform. This is a serious thing. And yet, in all that going on, God's answer to people is he has not changed his mind. And he will do exactly what he's purposed to do. He has enough people who prayed, enough people who had fasted, enough people who had fasted and met him at his face. Not just here in America, but literally globally for the first time, millions of people in the body of Christ have come together for one thing, for America to remain with God. And God said, I will not ignore those prayers, nor those tears, nor their worship. I couldn't do it and be a just God. Therefore, I have permission to act. Since I gave the earth to you all, to rule and reign with my son, I have all the permission I need to act, and I will act. And many will run, many will try to get out of the country, many will try to hide, but it won't work. Because I've already positioned in my heart who will lead in this country, and even those who will stand beside Trump that aren't there now. But I will have the right to stand with him together in agreement, and you better watch your words. Your words count, and I am writing them down, says your God. Yes. You're really just calling those things that be not as though they were. Yep. He never said to call those things the way they are. What's going on? What does the news media say? What does everyone else say? That's not what he says. You call those things that be not as though they already are. What better way can we do that than to celebrate in the midst of everything that people are seeing and hearing? Who's going to be a voice for God to show that we have hope? Why do we have hope? Christ in you. And I want to say this loudly. The hope of glory, not the hope of loss. Not the hope of demise, the hope of glory. Do you know that we create a cloud of the glory around us when we allow Christ who is in us to say what he wants, and then we actually live like we believe it? Christ in us, those who are believers, you carry hope because he's in you. Let him say what he wants to. I can tell you right now, they are celebrating in heaven, not because they don't care. They've already been from the beginning to the end. They know what is going to happen. Some of the greatest days we've ever seen, some of the greatest moves of God, the baptism in fire, releasing the glory around this world, so it's seen openly by people's eyes.
Is an appointed official in that town who actually went against the will of the state legislature and created ballot drop boxes, which is basically ballot harvesting that was happening in the parks.
But this was all litigated. You know that the Trump campaign litigated all of this, more than 60 cases, and they lost. Either the cases were dismissed, the Trump campaign withdrew, or they never brought a case because they didn't have the evidence to back it up.
Indeed, I believe specifically, and this is the one that I debated on behalf of on the House floor, in Wisconsin, that was never heard because they dismissed it because of standing. Now, I don't believe that that is a concrete enough of a way to say
Well, there were 3 Trump appointed. Okay, so you have Wisconsin, but you ended up not actually voting against Wisconsin. It was just Arizona and Pennsylvania because you didn't have the Senate votes. But 3 Trump appointed judges actually threw out these cases because of merit. It was because of merit. There were 3 Trump-appointed judges out of all of these judges and the more than 60 cases that were tossed out. And you keep talking about Wisconsin. I'm still not hearing any specific examples of fraud. If you would, just tell us, what are the specific examples you saw of fraud? Because when you think of fraud, you think of a vote, you're slipping one past the election official, or a vote was stolen, somehow it didn't count. Did you see that specifically?
No, Pam, and like I said, that's not the reason I contested the election.
Hold on, so you wanted to throw out millions of votes without actually seeing any concrete evidence of fraud? Because that's what you were doing when you were contesting the election. The intent there was throwing out millions of votes.
Well, I disagree with you on that point. That was not my intent. My intent was to hold up the Constitution, and setting up ballot drop boxes, which is essentially ballot harvesting in Wisconsin, is unconstitutional because the state legislature said they didn't want that.
So you know more than the judge, the Trump-appointed judge, who actually looked at that case before the election and dismissed the Trump campaign's argument that drop boxes are unconstitutional. And if you would you point to me and where in the Constitution it says that drop boxes are unconstitutional? I don't recall seeing that in the Constitution.
But the people who changed their vote because of that, I believe they were doing it because of political expedience, either if they were going to contest or if they weren't going to contest. The actions of January 6th do not change what happened in the November election, and I believe what happened in Wisconsin was unconstitutional.
Okay, so you keep focusing on Wisconsin, but there were several battleground states that you contested to, that you talked about. There were several that President Trump had lost. So it's interesting you're focusing on Wisconsin, but would you apply the same issues you had with these battleground states to your own state of North Carolina? Because North Carolina also changed a lot of the rules, even after voters had started voting. Why didn't you have concerns about your own home state of North Carolina?
Well, you know what, Pam, I'm actually not aware of the laws that were changed inside of North Carolina. I believe we had a very safe and a very secure election here.
There were several rules.
There's no reason to contest that.
Yeah, there were several rules, one of which is to extend when the mail-in ballots could arrive, I believe, by around 7 days. That was one, and there were a couple of others as well that were changed even after people started voting. So I'm just wondering, if you're so concerned about these rules being changed with the election, why wouldn't you focus on your own home state of North Carolina? I mean, you're telling me that your concern really is about election integrity, not politics, not the result of the election, right?
That is absolutely correct. I didn't do this for any one man or against any one man.
Okay, so North Carolina, though, the same issues you've had and you've expressed about the battleground states, those are the same issues that are in your own state of North Carolina. And North Carolina actually did have mail-in ballot fraud in 2018. So you're not concerned about your home state and whether you were duly elected by your own standards?
Well, I'll tell you, because of the mail-in ballot fraud that happened in the midterms here in 2018, I believe our election integrity standards here in North Carolina are some of the greatest in the country.
Can you now say that the election was not stolen, that it wasn't a fraudulent election?
Yes, I think I would say that the election was not fraudulent. The Constitution allowed for us to be able to push back as much as we could, and I did that to the amount of the constitutional limits that I had at my disposal. So now I would say that Joseph R. Biden is our president.
And you have no regrets?
No, I do not have any regrets.
Okay. Listen, Republican Congressman Madison Cawthorn, thank you for coming on.
Many are disappointed that he was not anywhere near as authoritarian as we hoped he would be. Many of you pissed. You wanted him to rule with an iron fist. Many of us had believed that he would do that, including myself at times. I thought he might do some things that would be outside the norms of governance, and instead you ended up with probably the least authoritarian president I've ever seen.
Ministers are busy obsessing over a woman with pink hair who refuses to recant her prophecy that Trump will be in office. You know, prophets lose their own credibility with rational people. After a while, they have to recognize that they missed it. The prophets tend to end up exposing themselves, because if they prophesy something that doesn't happen, don't you think they know it didn't happen? And the Mets will win the World Series. Well, what if they don't? I'm holding on. God told me, and they're going to win. It may take a year, but they'll be winning it. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in elections either.